Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly. Well, welcome back to Radio Free Batu, and I'd like to welcome our host, our galactic host down in LA, Chris Bright. How you doing today, Chris?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm so excited about today's episode.
And I think I may have just dated myself. There's probably about 3 people listening to the podcast that even knows what I'm talking about when I say Radio Free, but that goes to Radio Free Europe. And I'd like to welcome to our show our good friend Adam from Philadelphia. How you doing today, Adam?
Good. How are you?
You are a roving reporter, I think. We're going to have to up your your pay or something.
I did Star Wars Celebration. That we did that special episode, and the Early Morning Magic. That was another quick one we did, and now this.
Yeah, we're pretty excited. You got to get down to ride Rise of the Resistance this weekend.
I did. I was in the masses of crazy people at 6 o'clock in the morning, or a little earlier than that, trying to get on the ride.
Well, let's just kind of go through it a little bit, and to kind of tie it into Disney Cruise Line. Disney Cruise Line is doing in the middle of their very merry cruises right now, and starting January 4th on board the Fantasy, they run some Star Wars Days at Sea. And Chris, you and Seth are going on one of those cruises, aren't you?
We are. We are making the next 2 months like the Star Wars fans' dream, because we're going to see, obviously, the 9th film in the Skywalker saga that's coming out at Christmas. And then we are going to Marathon Weekend at Disney World, where we have a whole day planned basically around Rise of the Resistance and riding that. And then we are going on a cruise that's Star Wars Day at Sea themed. That's going to basically just sort of be the cherry on top of our Star Wars journey. And then, believe it or not, at the end of January, Rise of the Resistance opens here at Anaheim, at the Anaheim Disneyland version of Batu. So we will get to compare both versions and see if there's anything different. So we're really, really excited.
So after January, you kind of go back into rehab, Star Wars rehab, when everything kind of shuts down for a while.
Yeah, who knows what's next?
Yeah.
I think Disney's going out with a bang.
Yeah. Well, hopefully this isn't the ending.
Well, it's the end of an era. It's the end of the Skywalker era.
Yeah, that's true. I kind of missed that point as far as the film goes. But, well, let's just kind of jump into it. So to kind of tie it into Disney Cruise Line, kind of neat to be able to go to Batu and visit Galaxy's Edge and Hollywood Studios, and then pop over to Port Canaveral, jump on the beautiful Disney Fantasy, and do your 7-day cruise. And those cruises, if you're interested still in doing it, there's plenty of availability. January 4th is the first one, and they're the Eastern and Western 7 days, and they end with the last sailings February 29th, and then they move into spring break where they don't run them. So, well, let's kind of jump into it. Adam, you guys, we're going to touch on a couple different things. I know that you started off wanting to go down there, obviously, because of the ride.
Yeah, so actually last January, I started to visualize the whole Star Wars, when it's going to open, and they had rumors that it was going to open in Florida in, I guess they said fall of 2019, and we all know technically fall ends on December 20th. So I was wanting to get down there, not necessarily for an opening of anything. So I landed on this December. We went the 3rd to the 8th, a Tuesday to a Sunday, and we're DVC members, but I don't always just like using my points just for anything. So my son is super into cars, and when we were out in Disneyland, he was nuts in Radiator Springs, and we decided to book Art of Animation and the Cars Land, the Cars rooms. They're a little bit bigger than a regular hotel room. They have that one bedroom-esque feel to them, and it looked really cool, the theming. So we booked it. I booked it back in January. Had no idea Rise was going to open that weekend. And as it got out to my family, we were doing this because it was around the holiday. My parents hopped on. My sister hopped on. The kids hopped on. Well, then I started having a panic attack about all these people and trying to navigate Star Wars land, because I'm like, this is why we're going. This is what I want to do. It's all about me. If you guys want to come, we're getting a VIP tour, because also back then I was scared. I was the hype of all the people. I was just expecting it to be full the whole time. The Star Wars Land full. So until Disneyland opened and everyone realized that it was full, but not that full, So that's why I put the VIP tour in place, and I booked it back in May. Again, had no idea Rise was opening that day. So that's how we got to that situation of staying at Art of Animation for the first time and going down at this time of year.
I mean, you timed it sort of perfectly on accident.
Yes.
Because your dates were booked so far in advance, and then they announced, I want to say they announced this back in like July or August, right? That they were going to be opening Rise in December on the 5th, or when did you find out that was going to coincide?
Yeah, so it was sometime over the summer. I feel like it was July, and there was a little caveat to the VIP tour. I got a call from them in August saying, "Hey, you're good. All of Star Wars Land will be open for you, Rise, and the other one." I'm like, "Great, perfect. This is actually, I got some Disney luck here. I'm going to be down for an opening of an attraction. That's never really happened for me. I always miss it by a week. We missed Pandora by like a week, missed Mine Train by a week. So it's always so. I was like, we finally got some good luck here." And then I got a phone call on Sunday from the VIP people saying, "We're sorry, Rise is not included." And like, I'm on the phone with the guy, and I'm just like, "Dude, we're 10 of us are coming down here." I actually emailed Len Testa about it, and we went back and forth. And so he mentioned it on a show today about what happened too. Like, and they he was like, "I can't cancel the hotel room. I have 10 people coming down." It was kind of the same thing here. And Disney basically just said, "We're sorry, we don't." And I get it. They don't want us standing in line for 2 hours paying all that money, because the VIP tours are pricey. So that's kind of what happened. So we found it on Sunday. Rise wasn't included, so fast forward, had to come up with a backup plan on how to get there. But we kind of went off track here, back to the Skyliner.
Well, let's just stay with the VIP tour for just a second.
Okay.
Did you guys end up staying with the VIP tour that first day, or what did you guys end up doing?
We did. We did the VIP tour on Thursday, which was the day Rise was opening. The VIP tour did include Smuggler's Run, and we could do that. So the VIP tour, honestly, was one of the best Disney days I've ever had. I'm more of the person that's like running the group and marching everyone over to the next ride and be like, "We can't miss this Fast Pass. We got to eat lunch here." And having someone else do that for you, for me, was very relaxing, and actually really, really got to enjoy the day. Which, I'm not saying I don't enjoy my days down there, but there's someone always in my family that ticks me off, or is not walking fast enough, or is, just not paying attention and getting lost in the crowd. And, it's just something always happens down there. And it's, when you're moving 10 people, it's hard. So, it's just one of those things. That was super nice not having to worry about that.
So you said that Rise wasn't part of it. What are some of the things that you can ask ahead of time with the VIP tour as far as experiences that you want to have?
They were very vague. And so when you call up and book up, they kind of go over like, you can go to any parks. It's a 7-hour minimum. They went over the pricing, which the pricing ranges between like $450 and can go well over $600 an hour for like Christmas week. And it's very fluid on different dates. It's just kind of, some days are cheaper, some days are more expensive. So they go over pricing, and they basically said, you can do what you want within reason inside the parks. You use it to ride rides. You use it to basically do anything that there's fast passes. You don't get to like cut in line of a character doing a standard meet and greet like out on the street. But it basically is tied to fast pass rides. Is what you get. And then you also get transportation to and from the parks if you want. So that's kind of how it was. It wasn't very vague. There was no like itinerary. We didn't have one of them.
And you didn't necessarily know if you were going to spend the entire day in one park, or how did you sort of break up your day?
Yeah, so it was completely up to us. We could have gone in one ride in every park and made the person just drive us around from park to park to park to park to park, or you could spend a whole day in a park. And you also, if you're liking the tour and you want to continue it, they'll add on an hour, 15-minute increments. You can book them all day for 14 hours if you want. Basically how much you want to spend is how much you're going to get hour time-wise. There's no like minimum and you don't have to start the tour in the morning. You can start it whenever you want. You just have to hit the 7 hours. So it was kind of just like up in the air. Our tour guide did not know what we were going to do until we met her at 8:30 in the morning in front of the hotel.
That's kind of exciting.
Yeah, it was kind of it was very exciting actually.
Well, I totally get the aspect of, letting them kind of lead you so you don't feel, we've all been there, I'm sure, as being the leaders of the group, trying to steer everybody around to the different things. What were some of the highlights you got to experience, or what were some of the things that you got to experience that you haven't done before?
The cool part was she picked us up, put us in a van, and we drove. So our plan was do the Magic Kingdom and then head over to Hollywood Studios. When I was talking to her, I was like, hey, we'll start in Tomorrowland at Buzz Lightyear, and we will just work counterclockwise until we have to leave, basically, so we can do some Hollywood Studios. You go in the side entrance behind Main Street. So I don't know if you've ever really noticed, but there's a road, like, as soon as you go past that light at Contemporary where the bus loop is, there's another little road that goes in front of that retaining wall in the Magic Kingdom that they just redid. Uh-huh. And there's a security there, and you go through, and they check your bag. You do the one bag check. And then you go back in that parking lot, and there are other VIP tour guides waiting there for you, and they do like a valet service there, and you pop out of the car and they check check for your tickets, and they have waters and drinks and snacks. Then you go in through the back and you pop out on Main Street, and then it's kind of off to the races. So the cool part was on rides like Buzz Lightyear and Space Mountain, she's like Buzz Lightyear, she walked us in the back and we actually got on where you get off. And then on Space Mountain, you walk through the normal queue, but then she walked us around, and we got right on in front of all the people, even in Fast Passes. Various rides like the Princess is the same thing. You got walked in around on the character meet and greets. Now, again, the character meet and greets, if there was a Fast Pass, you got to cut. If there wasn't one, you had to wait in line. So she couldn't get you in front of Jasmine and Aladdin in Adventureland. So I guess they don't want to make anything blatant in front of like all the other guests. Like, hey, this person is a VIP tour. They get special treatment over everybody. We did have an incident when we met. We waited in line for Mickey on Town Square. Some lady went up to our VIP tour guide and was like, do you always cut in line? And kind of made this real awkward like situation, and we were like, and she handled the question. She was like, no, this is how it works. But the lady got like really angry, and I don't even understand, because we were all just waiting in the Fast Pass line. It wasn't like we got pushed in front of them. So they said they deal with that kind of stuff all the time with other guests. So she handled it very well.
I've never done the VIP tour that you described. They have it at Disneyland as well. What Seth and I have done is the Keys to the Kingdom tour at Disney World. That includes basically going in and getting priority access to a couple of rides. So like they took us into a back entrance at Haunted Mansion, and we rode Haunted Mansion that way. They took us on the Jungle Cruise that way, and they also took us on, I can't remember the other thing, but they were basically Pirates. 3 rides that we got to ride in that way. But it sounds like, and that was like also on top of a tour where they take you through the Utilidor and do all that kind of stuff. But it sounds like the VIP tour is that, but just like all day and whatever you want to do, which sounds like a dream come true.
Yeah, so we, Pirates, we actually walked backstage and in through an exit. That was pretty neat. And I'm trying to think. Oh, yeah, on Haunted Mansion, I requested us to miss the stretching room because we were bringing my 3-year-old, and I figured that was the part that he might freak out at. So in order to I didn't want to get off on a bad foot there, I asked her, can we miss the stretching room? And she's like, sure. And she walked us right through these doors. She actually showed us something on the wall there. It was a piece of mantle from the Haunted Mansion in Disneyland and a clock. And she said, this is from Disneyland, the Haunted Mansion there. I've never seen, I mean, when would you ever see that? Because you never would be back in those hallways. You know what I mean? So that was pretty cool. So those rides. So this is interesting. So the day before, we were at dinner in Animal Kingdom, and we had a Fast Pass for Navi River Journey, but not Flight of Passage. And my 2 nieces haven't been on it, and they were all like, we want to go on it. And I'm like, sorry, guys. I'm going to go wait in line. I'm like, I tried to get all the Fast Passes I could. I couldn't get them. Sorry. While we were on the ride that came up, or while we were on the tour, and the tour guide was like, we can shoot. We're doing great on time. We can shoot over to Pandora and before we go to Hollywood Studios. I'm like, well, I was talking to my parents. I'm like, all right, should we get another hour? And I was like, all right. Well, my parents like, get another hour so they can do the ride. But she's like, I think we're going to be good on time. You might not even need any extra time. So After we did the Magic Kingdom, we did 14 rides in the Magic Kingdom before 12 o'clock. So from 9 until 12, we did 14 experiences in the Magic Kingdom and had lunch at the one by Haunted Mansion. I can't think of the name. It's drawing a blank. The fish place that's in that area.
Liberty.
So, yeah,
Liberty Tower.
not Liberty. No, not Liberty. The quick service. Anyway, I know everyone is screaming it at me right now because they all know it. But we had lunch there, quick service. And so we did 14 experiences at rides or experiences, and we're out of the Magic Kingdom by like 12:30.
Adam, my jaw is literally on the floor.
Yeah, it was nuts. I mean, and also Peter Pan went down, and we were in line. We were ready to get on it, but it went down. So we would have had 15 if Peter Pan wasn't down. So then the crazy part was we get in the van. She drives us to Pandora, the back of Pandora. We walk out of Pandora, walk right on the Flight of Passage, walk back outside into our car, and within 30 minutes, we were in and out of Animal Kingdom and rode Flight of Passage. And then we were on our way to Hollywood Studios.
Oh, my gosh.
I mean, it was crazy. Like, just literally walked in the bathrooms in Pandora. There's a little exit spot that the cast can get out and security and all that stuff for backstage stuff, in and out. So, yeah, then we were on the Hollywood Studios, and we went in to do Slinky Dog. We did Smuggler's Run, and I actually had to leave to go do the lightsaber experience, and she walked my family back to do Rock and Roller Coaster and Tower of Terror. And she actually went on just with the kids because my parents and my sister didn't want to go, and she took the kids on the rides. My parents were like, this is the greatest thing ever. Can you take the kids on all the rides? So yeah, it was an amazing experience, I have to say.
That sounds like maybe the most perfect day. Also, I have done the lightsaber experience, and I'm going to ask you about it and your feelings. But to cap off a day with that like near spiritual lightsaber experience is like maybe the most perfect Disney day I could imagine.
It definitely was. I kept telling my wife, I'm like, this is the best day. I just had a smile on my face the whole day. Like I can't even. And just not only that, the knowledge that she had. Like, I mean, we're all up on Disney. I'm sure we read rumor pages, this, that, and the news and everything. So just to talk to somebody who's like on the ground floor with it, and like we were talking about the direction of the company and our opinion of the current Parks and Resorts chairman, and all that kind of stuff. And it was just great to have someone to kind of go back and forth with and talk about something, because she really loved Disney. She had a good time. She was excited to go on the rides. She was just great, so overall experience was a A++++.
So before we finish up on the VIP tour stuff, I did not listen. So you were talking to Len Testa, who appears on the Jim Hill Media Show. Did you guys come up with any resolution as far as when possibly that Rise of the Resistance will be available at the VIP tours?
No, they said it's when I was on the phone with them, they said it was definitely through the rest of the year, and it's all has to do with the reliability of the ride. Len mentioned something on their show today about you can pay them to wait in line for you, it seemed, but I didn't get that far with the VIP people. I just kind of didn't feel like fighting with it because, I know you're not going to win. So, yeah, his show had a little more detail on getting, contacting Disney with like complaints and stuff and the responses they got. So I didn't let it get that far.
Why don't we jump back to Art of Animation and your thoughts on the Skyliner? Was this the first time you've ridden it?
Yeah, first time we rode it, first time we were at Art of Animation, and I was very impressed. The theming of the hotel, the location with the Skyliner, my kids loved it. The room was great. It was clean. It was nice. I know they call it a value resort, but they really don't charge value prices there. So the Skyliner worked seamlessly for us. I think we got stopped on it once for like 30 seconds, and it was at Epcot line, and I think that's the one they generally are having issues with. I think that's where the big stoppage was on the bad night that they had. So you got on Art of Animation, you went to Caribbean Beach, that maybe was a 5-minute ride. Never waited in a line there. They just keep moving you through. Sometimes they put you with other people. Other times it was just our family or a family of 4. You walked the stroller right in there. So we didn't have to take the stroller apart. You just got in and then walked out, and then you went over and you chose to go either to Epcot or to Hollywood Studios. Epcot line was the longest ride. You could go through the other station at the the Riviera, and then you go on a turning station, and then off to Epcot. So the views were great. Actually, the views, if you really don't have a choice, but they have some of these gondolas have skins on them with characters, and some don't. If you cannot get on the skins one, because it does mess with the view. The ones without the skins, the view is amazing. The ones with the skins, it's kind of blurry, and you really can only see out the door. I had to have a really clear view. So that what I would recommend. Not like you can't choose, but you get lucky and you get one without the skin on it. I thought it was a game changer for those resorts, and if I had a choice, I actually do. I have to go down to a conference in January, and we're staying at Caribbean Beach because I'm like, you can get into those two parks quicker, practically faster than you can if you walk. So if you walk from the boardwalk to Hollywood Studios, I bet it would take longer than riding the Skyliner from Caribbean Beach to Hollywood Studios, in my opinion.
How many times in your trip did you find yourself choosing the Skyliner over buses or minivans or any other form of transportation?
We only took the bus when we had to. So Animal Kingdom or when we went to the Magic Kingdom for the Christmas party. We only minivan once when we went to Contemporary for dinner. Other than that, it was all Skyliner all the time. We went to dinner at the boardwalk. We took the Skyliner from Epcot and walked over to the boardwalk, and it was great. My sister was staying at another hotel, so they couldn't even do it. They had to take an Uber over. And since we have a young child, we need the car seat, so Uber's not really an option for us. So we have to kind of take the minivan, and the minivan, I think our minivan ride was like $30 when we went from Art of Animation to Contemporary. So it's not exactly something you want to be doing 2 or 3 times a day. So we just used it the whole time, and my son loved it. He was just the happiest kid ever on that thing. It was a whole like a ride for him. So once you get over the fact that you could get stuck up there, and as long as you're okay with that, then it's great. I think it's going to be a complete game changer, and if they can expand it, that would be great. I would love it to go to Animal Kingdom and just to get off those buses. I mean, there's nothing worse than like we experienced it, leaving the Christmas party after the parade or the fireworks and getting on a double length bus with probably 100 people they stuff on there. There's nothing worse than that, in my opinion. And if this Skyliner could take some of that off your plate and allow you to stay at different resorts that aren't necessarily next to a park or on the monorail, I just think it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, and to your point, there is no ride at Disney that has a ride vehicle that you couldn't get stuck on. So
true.
I think like it's just like part of being in an attraction. And because we go to Disneyland so often, I would be hard pressed to think of a ride that I haven't been stuck on for some amount of time. And it's just sort of part of the territory. And Disney takes care of you. They have so much safety concerns met just in their policies that, I don't know, I usually feel pretty safe there.
Yeah, and honestly, we were on the safari and our driver, the tire blew. And we got stuck out in the safari for 15, 20 minutes before she got the okay to move again. So, I mean, it could happen. Gosh. Yeah, it was crazy. The tire blew, exploded, air flew out. She cut a corner a little too close and caught her on a rock.
Oh my gosh.
So that was an interesting experience, but you're right. I never thought you could get stuck on that ride. But we did.
Any other questions about the Skyliner? I get Chris before we move on to the Rise of the Resistance.
Well, just that. So Seth and I are staying at Pop, which is
perfect.
It shares the Skyliner station with Art of Animation right there over Hourglass Lake, and we're going to be doing a 9-day trip. So we anticipate that we'll use the Skyliner a lot. Because I agree with you, there's nothing more miserable than being sardined into one of those buses. But I don't know. I guess we'll see operationally how it goes. I would love it if they expand it. But you know what? Everyone's also been saying expand the monorail for like 50 years. So I feel like the reality is Disney maybe won't expand the Skyliner that quickly, but they have at least plans for possible expansion in the future.
Yeah, and I mean, right now, too, we're on it, or I was on it before Riviera opened. I know when Riviera opens, it's going to create more people on it that could change the experience with lines and whatnot, because obviously that resorts have 0 people in, so the station's not used very rarely. But once that's full and everyone's going to be on that, it definitely will be an interesting dynamic. I'd be interested to see what the crowds are like at busy times. You would probably have to wait a little more. So it could change, but I don't ever could see that it would be better to take a bus because there's a cabin every like 15 seconds. So, it moves. So
efficient. Yeah. Steve, where are you staying marathon weekend?
We are going to be at Saratoga Springs, so we will not be taking the
Skyliner.
I think it's a psychological thing because when you're in a line that just keeps moving, even if it's a long line, if it's moving, it doesn't feel as bad. And then being in line with the Skyliner just keeps moving versus sitting there for a bus. And you get there and it's like 20 minutes and you're just waiting and you're waiting. To me, it's a psychological thing. You see the Skyliner keep moving, people are getting on it, the line keeps moving. I would much rather stand in line for that, it sounds like. So I'm looking forward to riding it.
And there's been so many times like this happened when we left Animal Kingdom where we just missed the bus and we had to wait like a full cycle. And I was like waiting. I looked at my wife and I said, if I knew we'd be waiting a half hour, I would pay for a minivan. Like I just, you think about that time you just waste, going to and from the parks. And the Skyliner honestly just made that go away. I mean, you just couldn't. The speed and as long as it stays up and running, it's just an A+ to me.
There's nothing worse than getting there. The bus says it's coming in 15 minutes, and then it goes to 20, and then to 25.
The time keeps going up and up and up. And you're just like, come on.
All right, well, let's turn to Rise of the Resistance. And for everybody listening at home, we will not do any spoilers at first, and at some point we may get into some spoilers, and we will warn you before we do that. So let's just talk about Rise of the Resistance. So you were down Thursday when it opened, is that right?
Yeah, so it was down Thursday when it opened, and like I said, we were going on the tour, so I actually did check my phone, and I saw they were doing this boarding group thing. So I was like, and I actually tried to get a boarding group from my phone while I was in the room, and it said, no, you need to be in the park. So I was like, that's good they're doing that. So we heard about the operational issues that day, and people that went down, and actually some boarding groups didn't get to go on. And they actually gave them a one-day park hopper as compensation if their boarding group wasn't missed. And apparently they gave them a fast pass for the next day. That next morning, my son woke up at a ridiculous hour of like 5:30. So we were kind of up in the room, and I started playing on my phone in the 6 o'clock hour, and I saw that they opened Hollywood Studios at 6 o'clock when it wasn't supposed to open until 9. And I was like, I had it in my head like, oh my God, should I make a break for it? Like, should I try to get over there and get a boarding group? But I didn't. And luckily I didn't because all the boarding groups were gone by 8 o'clock in the morning before the park officially opened at 9. Unless you were in the know, you didn't know that was going to happen. So I decided the next day, I recruited my daughter, who's 15, and then my niece, who is 11. She wanted to come, and my dad wanted to come too. So we decided. We got up at 5:30. We got in an Uber at 5:45 because, again, I talked to the Skyliner people. They weren't opening until 8 o'clock because the official park open wasn't until 9. And the buses weren't going to be running, again, because the official park opened. So we got an Uber, and we showed up at Hollywood Studios at 6 o'clock in the morning. So that's where our day started.
And how many people were there by the time you got there at 6?
So okay, I sent you that picture, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you look at Hollywood Studios, they have the ticket thing, and then maybe about 20, 30 feet, there's the actual place that you tap in to take your tickets. So that was filled the whole length, and then we were back maybe 10, 12 people deep behind the ticket things. And then that morning, they actually held us to 6:45. So at 6:45, they started letting people in the park. And it was probably another, I don't even know how many people were behind me. And you just were stuffed. It was a crazy amount of people. And this was all between 6 a.m. and 6:45.
And the moment that you tap in, you can start reserving a boarding group. Is that how it works?
Yes. The moment everyone that you want in your boarding group is in the park, you can tap in, and then you can get your boarding group. So the time we got through, so they started boarding group 10. By the time we got through, we were boarding group 47. So the whole thing about it is they let you, as soon as your boarding group's called, you have 2 hours to the ride, which is nice.
And how do you know? How do you know your boarding group's called?
Yep, your My Disney experience. You have push notifications. It sends a push notification to your phone. Your boarding group has been called, or you can just check it obsessively like we did every half hour. So the experience that we had was, so once we realized what was happening, we got in the park, 6:45, we got our boarding group. They opened up all the rides. So I said to my family, I said, listen, we should hang out here at 8 o'clock till the Skyliner's open so we can zip back and gather up the family, rest a little bit before we come back. Because it said on the app that our estimated time would be at the afternoon. So we had a good feeling that by the time they got to our boarding group, we'd be in the afternoon. So we had some time to kind of gather ourselves. So we walked. So the line to Starbucks was down the line. So the whole store was filled because everyone needed coffee and everything. So yeah, so we left and we walked, and then the line for Joffrey's was long in front of Toy Story's on. So I said, let's keep going. And we made it to Woody's Lunchbox. No line. We got some food and coffee. And then we went over to Smuggler's Run and walked on, which was awesome. That's what we did that morning. And then we left and came back around 11 o'clock and did some experiences with my son while we waited for our boarding group to be called.
So let's go back to the boarding group just one more time for people. So you once everybody's in the park and is tapped in, then you can get on My Disney Experience. Is it pretty self-explanatory as far as trying to find where you log into? Is there a separate part of the app, or was it pretty easy to do, I guess?
Yeah, it was pretty easy to do. It was right on the main page, and it said, like, let me see, like Rise of the Resistance and, boarding group, and there was a little tab. I'm going to open the app right now because it was like right in the main page. And then you could actually check your status in there, and then you also could sign up for a boarding group if they were available. So right as soon as you open My Disney Experience, boom, it says access by boarding group, find out more. And then obviously they're boarding right now. What time is it? 8:42. Groups 101 to 115, which is scary because they give out to over 150, which means this had a lot of downtime today. And if you got in there a little late, you were going to have well over, group 115. That's what's going on right now. And Millennium Falcon has a 10-minute wait.
So once you get into once it comes up and says, hey, you're within that 2-hour window, you can go back to Hollywood Studios if you're not there. And at that point, do you just get in line and show them okay.
You go through a checkpoint, 2 checkpoints, and they scan your band. You're in. Actually, my dad gave his we talked to the cast member up front, and he let my other niece ride. So I rode with my 2 nieces and my daughter. So he didn't ride. He gave it to her. Nice guy. Never would have done that. So they let him kind of swap them. I'm not saying they're going to let that for everyone, but they did let us do it. I don't want to, give everyone false sense that they can do that. So they did let us swap it out. He took her magic band. She took his magic band and went in. And then you just go through the queue, and it was full. The queue was full. You walked slowly. You did stop, but you got to experience pretty much the whole queue, as I understand it. Took about 45 minutes for us to get up to the ride.
Okay, which sort of seems like a perfect time to say that we might be talking some spoilers, though neither Steve and I want it to be spoiled for ourselves. So
yes,
it'll be spoiler light. But if you want to literally know nothing beyond scanning in to get on the ride, now would be the time to wait until Steve puts up the next episode to join us again.
Well, let's do 2 questions first before we do that. Any overall thoughts getting to this point, Adam, that people need to know, or any tips that you can offer them?
Yeah, so if you're going to be going in the next few months, I would imagine, like, I'm going back in, my next big family trip is in April. I would imagine this queue system is going to be up for a while. So knowing that, and especially if you're going in the next 3 months, it is imperative that you get to that park. If your goal is to ride this ride and you care about that, you need to be at that park an hour to whenever the park is opening. You need to be there at least an hour before that. I always say to people, like, oh, you're rope dropping, but you're really waiting. Like, oh, I walked on the Flight of Passage. I'm like, no, you didn't. You waited 2 hours in front of Animal Kingdom to get on that walk on. So it's like, you really have to judge. But in this situation, you don't get a boarding group, you don't go on. So it's not like at 3 o'clock you can be like, okay, let's go wait in the standby line, because the standby line doesn't exist now. And with the way the operation's going, until this ride is really, they have all the kinks ironed out, you're going to have to get there first thing in the morning, bite the bullet. If you want your kids to ride it, they got to go too. And you got to do it. There's no other choice.
The funny thing is, in LA, we're very used to this because this is how our Fast Pass system works. You don't make Fast Passes in advance. So at Disneyland, if you really want to ride a ride and get a Fast Pass, you have to be in the park early, and you can't reserve Fast Passes until you're scanned in. So it's actually sounds like a similar vibe to what everybody already does for Disneyland. But I imagine it's a huge adjustment for people who are so used to My Disney Experience, where it's like, yes, I've planned out every single minute of my entire vacation 6 months in advance. And so I think it might be hard for people to wrap their minds around what you're describing, having to like arrive right at the beginning of the opening of the park and be one of the first people to tap in and that whole thing. But it is similar to what's already done at Disneyland.
The second question before we go, you don't have any motion sickness problems, do you, Adam?
No, I do not.
And
I would say there's...
That's the question, I guess. And Chris, you'll want to know it. A lot of people will ask that. Any thoughts on motion sickness for people who might be worried about motion sickness with this ride?
No, I honestly felt like Star Tours was more jerky and gave you a little more like, ugh, than this ride did. Even Smuggler's Run. Now, I had two different experiences. One, we crashed a lot, so it was a little more jerky. The other one was a smoother ride. So I was like, oh, this was great. But no, I mean, there is one part of the ride where there's some sudden motion, but it's not that long. So I wouldn't say that there's nothing on there that I would say that a person, I mean, I can't speak for everyone, but I would think you would generally be okay.
I do get motion sick, though I still ride every ride. So I will report back.
Yeah, you would probably be a better gauge than me. So
because I get motion sick every time I ride Star Tours. Like that particular style of ride makes me motion sick. But I'm excited to give it a try, and I'll report back if there is any motion sickness. So,
all right.
Spoilers, as we mentioned earlier.
Spoilers. All right. So first thing I have to say is this is the best ride ever made, Disney's ever made. By far the most impressive thing I've ever experienced. It makes makes Flight of Passage look like, Soarin'. I just like it. It literally is a new level of wow. I can't even describe. It's hard to describe like how impressive this is. Now, maybe that's also why it doesn't work all the time because of all the things they did. And you kind of get in. It's 4 different rides. I mean, people said, I don't know if you've heard that. It is that. It's 4 different experiences. And they're all just amazing. And every single one of them has a wow moment.
So the 4 rides, based on what I know, would be the flight up to the Star Destroyer, and then the actual trackless ride vehicle in the Star Destroyer, and then a flight back. But what would that 3rd ride be? Okay,
so I guess the pre-show where you see the Rey hologram, it's not a ride, but the experience, I guess 4 experiences, that hologram was mind-blowing. Like, I took a video of it. Like, I have never seen that before. And you know how they use the holograms in Star Wars, and it's like, oh, that's a really cool way to talk to somebody. That pops up in that room, and you look up at that, and it's like, oh my God, that's Star Wars. I'm in a Star Wars movie right now. Like, BB-8's rolling around up there, and Rey is talking to you via hologram. And to me, that was just mind-blowing. It blew my mind right off the bat. So back to the queue, though. The queue is filled with like Rebel gear, really cool, like flight suits and weapons and like old abandoned like thing. And there's this really neat detail, and I want you guys to check it out when you're going through. So it's like carved into stone, it's formed concrete all around. And you go through this one section, and there's pottery in the wall. It looked like that ancient Batuians, or whatever you want to call them, had this civilization that got covered up by rocks. And when they dug the tunnels out, they came across ancient pottery, and it's in the wall, and there's so much of it. And it just was like really the detail was just unbelievable. It was really impressive. So just some of these details when you're walking through that queue, and you're going to be in there for a while, so just really appreciate the details in that queue. It was really impressive. There wasn't any interactive things in the queue. I mean, there were weapons boxes and things you could touch, but nothing did anything like, say, some of the other queues that Disney has done with games and stuff inside. It was all just props and whatnot.
So I'm going to show a little bit of my nerd self right now because I read a Star Wars novel that was basically written about Black Spire. So it takes place in Black Spire Outpost, and it tells the story of how the rebels set up this camp that you were going through. Mm-hmm. And in that novel, they describe exactly what you're talking about. So okay. I think it's really cool to have like Disney firing on all levels of like backstory and storytelling. And here's a novel that like sort of establishes a history and a story that everybody could read if they wanted to, and still not spoil the storyline of sort of the ride or anything like that. So okay. I'm just throwing it out there that's sort of a cool detail you're describing, because literally that exact detail is in a book that Disney wrote.
All right, I'm gonna have to read that now. Is that what Black Spire is it called, or?
Yeah, it's called Black Spire, and it's an okay book. I enjoyed it because I really enjoy Star Wars. I don't know that everyone would enjoy it, but it's sort of a spy vibe, and you learn literally so much about the land. And one of the big critiques that people have about the land is that it doesn't take place in a location that is in the Star Wars films. And how can we feel nostalgic for something that isn't very familiar to us? Shouldn't they have just basically built like Endor or something like that? But this book helps solve that problem, because it does make it more familiar to you, and you learn about the different characters and their backstory. So if you're thinking, I don't know enough about Star Wars, or rather Black Spire Outpost, I want to know more, there's a book for you.
So as you're kind of moving through with this group, once you start the experience and you get Rey comes out, how many people are with you, just out of curiosity?
Okay, yeah. So in that I would say there's about 15 to 20 people with you, and the room definitely was not full. So I'm not sure if I'm sure they were running at a way lower capacity. And then same thing in the next stage, the ship that you're on, it was not crowded in there at all. It kind of felt empty, actually. This was one of the same detail Chris heard this morning with Len, that you walk in the ship and you do the stuff in the ship. And then when the ship gets captured, you walk out of the same door. And that like blew my mind. I thought you were going to go to the other door, like every Disney ride where you go in one door and then kind of go through the next door because the thing doesn't really move. They just pretend. So you start outside, you go in a ship, and you do your thing, and then you come into that hangar, and you go through the same door. And I don't know why, that just kind of really blew my mind, experiencing that, because I wasn't expecting it. So now, unfortunately, you guys had that ruined. So yeah, that was just amazing.
Yeah, it's a funny detail to pick up on, because it doesn't seem like that wild, except you're totally right.
Yeah.
It messes with your mind, because there's a level of like immersion and realism in there that they don't normally get to do on a ride.
Yes, that is 100% true. And you do go outside, and there's Poe's X-Wing there. And this is a little thing I have a little, my nerdiness is coming out. That X-Wing was destroyed in The Last Jedi, and this is after The Last Jedi. And then also, like, Kylo Ren's ship that is in the other side of the land doesn't exist in Star Wars lore at all. I mean, I guess it technically could, but that, like... And I heard that ship was made for that Colin Trevorrow had that ship in his episode 9, and when he got fired, like, they kept some stuff, like got rid of most of the stuff, but they already were into the land and they couldn't change it. So there's a couple things in the land that I noticed. I'm like, why did they do that? They could have just painted it orange like the new movie, but they didn't. So it's just one of the things you kind of have, suspend a little, I had to slow my nerd down. So,
well, if they get enough feedback from you guys, maybe they'll change.
Paint it, please. Yes. So you start out there, and BB-8's in the thing, and you go and you get in the ship, and then the experience starts. I do have one negative thing about the ride, and I don't know. Again, I don't understand the capacity issues, and I don't understand like how fast it actually will move once it's up and running. But when you come out of that hangar, and it's a truly amazing experience, you kind of get in another line in order to be processed, in order to go to the detention center. And that took 10 minutes, but you're in a situation where people pull out their phones and you start looking around, and you kind of get taken out of it for a little bit, and you got to get back into it. It was just a little weird. It was like kind of a weird vibe. Like what are we doing here? But you were waiting in line to get to the next spot. And again, I'm not sure about the capacity of the ride. I don't know what it was running at. And I don't know if that was a effect of the capacity, but I thought that was just a little weird.
No, I can totally understand that, where everybody stops and people are checking their phones. So, well, besides the one kind of negative, as we kind of finish the rest of the ride, what were your overall thoughts as you finished the rest of it? And how long was the experience?
Yeah, it was a good 20 plus minutes, the whole experience. When you come out in that room with all those stormtroopers, it's just mind blowing. Like you're in a movie. You're in the movie. You're in The Force Awakens. Like that scene when Poe and Finn escape, and you see the TIE fighters up on that thing the way they are, and it just is truly just wonderful. Once you get processed, like the cast members are all dressed like First Order officers, and they're playing the part. I wish they were a little more like, rigid on you, but they say, and you get sent in that detention area, and then all heck breaks loose and the ride really, really starts. A lot of really cool things happen. And at one point in the experience, my niece told me after the ride, she's like, "You look like a 4-year-old on Christmas morning." And that's how, going into the AT-AT room and seeing the animatronics and the blaster fire and the lightsaber and everything, it was a dream come true to any Star Wars fan. And I think any theme park fan, you just have to be impressed with how this ride works and all the different stuff going in, and feeling like you went up to space and came back down, and all everything else that was going on. You can't even say enough amazing things about it.
I want to be a 4-year-old on Christmas morning, so I am so excited for January. I feel like everything that I've heard, people are saying it's not just the best ride at Disney, but the best ride in the world. So that's pretty high praise, and I cannot wait to experience it.
It made you feel special doing it. I felt like I was happy I went through it. I'm glad we got up in the morning to do it. And I think if you had to do that, you would definitely feel satisfied. I would say, I'm not a guy who waits in lines. I won't go wait 2 hours to ride. It's a Peter Pan's flight in the middle of the summer or whatever. But I would honestly say, I said, Pandora was worth the 90-minute wait. Flight of Passage was worth a 90-minute wait. I would honestly say this ride is worth a 2-hour wait. I would wait 2 hours in a standby line for this ride.
Well, don't tell Disney that.
Yeah. So
no, I'm just kidding. Hey, so I don't want to sound glass half full here.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask kind of a crazy question after you just get to talking about that, but I want to go back one thing. Was the realism to the point where you felt almost intimidated? Because I went through, and I don't want to make this about me or anything like that, but when I was in the Air Force, I went through resistance training, and one of the things, you're in a bus and you're driving on this road and they capture you and you go through this whole 36-hour kind of resistance training, and it was pretty intimidating. And so I could see where maybe they would back off a little bit, but did you have that sense at all, or was it just more wonderment as you're kind of looking around and going through it?
It was more wonderment. I feel like they could have been a little harder on you. Yeah, I feel like they could have done a little more of a First Order, being mean to you type thing, and just don't talk there and you look straight ahead. And
yeah,
I would have been a little more into that if they were a little more. But I know they kind of can, because most people will be get away from me, man.
Right.
But the one guy who put us in the detention was great. He was stern. He was firm. He told you had to do X, Y, and Z, and you better listen to him. But not everyone was like that. So, there was probably 30 cast members dressed in complete First Order outfits, like legit officer outfits. So the cast is a big part of that whole middle part of that movie, or a middle part of that ride.
And here's the part that people are going to shoot me for asking this question, but do you think it lends itself to updating in the future as far as, this is the overall experience? Could they change the story? You've already said this is something you would go back to and ride over and over again, and a 2-hour wait, but we won't let Disney know anything about that.
No, I don't think they could really update it. A lot of the animatronics are pretty firm in there. I don't know how you could change the story. You could maybe like paint those X-wings or whatever, but
Yeah.
you're kind of in that story.
Yeah.
No, I think that's going to be
Okay.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Now that I think about it, I think that's the ride. It's like, it's Small World. I mean, you're not going to rip out animatronics and totally change everything. So
Yeah, don't anybody shoot me. I was just thinking that as you're kind of talking about that. I go back to our family. We did The Void, which, I mean, it's obviously not anywhere near this level, but all four of us came out there just with huge smiles in October. So I can imagine what it was like for you guys to go through this. And then as you're talking about Chris being a kid on Christmas morning, experiencing this ride.
Yeah, I'm real excited, and this whole conversation just made me like 10 times more excited. So I can't wait. That's really the way to sum up this whole episode. Is just, this is an exciting thing, and we hope everyone gets to do it.
I agree. I mean, I'm just so happy we went through it, and luck worked out for us to be able to ride the ride. And I would honestly say if you were close to it and could get down there quickly, and you had the means to get there, in the next couple days or weeks, and I would take the opportunity to do that. It's definitely worth a quick trip just to do that ride.
Well, I guess as we finish up, any last questions there, Chris?
No, I don't think so. I'm ready to not have anything else spoiled and just to live my best adult nerd life.
Well, Adam, what's next for you guys? What's next in your Disney bucket list? I know you got a couple cruises with Royal coming up, but what's next for you with Disney?
I'll be down there for a couple days in this January for a conference, and then I've got a 3-day on the Dream followed up by 6 days at Copper Creek end of April with my wife and her family. We are doing that, and then we got a big Alani trip in the summer for my 40th. So that's my next 6 months. And since Star Wars Celebration's out in Disneyland, I will be making an appearance in Star Wars Celebration end of August. So are you going to that, Chris?
Hi, hello, I'll be there.
All right, I got tickets for Friday, so I'll definitely be there Friday. We'll have to.
Okay, yeah, we'll have to connect. Yeah.
Yep, awesome. So that's my next, I guess, 9 months. So.
Well, perfect. Well, thanks again, Adam, for being our roving reporter down at Walt Disney World. We'll have to come up with something other than the sticker I sent you.
Yes, I did get that. I meant to tell you today. Thank you.
We'll have to up your pay a little bit.
Yes, there you go.
For your next episode. So.
Wait, you get paid for this?
I know. Well, no, seriously. Thanks again, Adam. We really appreciate it.
No problem.
Love your takes, and thanks for sacrificing not watching the Eagles tonight to bring this out to our listeners.
Okay, they're losing to the Giants, so.
So not too much of a sacrifice.
Yeah. Nope.
I hear you. All right. Well, thanks again, Adam, and we will talk to you soon. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye, Adam.
Bye.